Ian, are you saying that to protect Jamie? Because if you are...
It was only once. She is so beautiful.
When Outlander Season 7 wrapped up, it left fans with a pretty wild idea. Claire suddenly decided that Faith Pocock might actually be her daughter. That was a huge twist because for years the show led us to believe Faith had died as a baby. But now, with the finale teasing this unexpected connection, the story feels more complicated than ever. And if that wasn't enough, new details from the Outlander prequel, Blood of My Blood, suggest that Claire might actually be completely wrong about Faith's true identity. The whole theory started in Season 7's finale when Claire overheard young Fanny Pocock singing I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside, a song from the 20th century. The moment Claire heard it, she made a leap that only someone like her would make. She convinced herself that Faith Pocock must have been her long-lost daughter, because Claire herself had once sung that same song to baby Faith back in Season 2. It felt like a meaningful connection. The problem, of course, is that Claire doesn't really have any hard evidence to back up her sudden conclusion. The only things supporting her belief are a dream visit from Master Raymond and that old song, which was first recorded in 1909. But even if Claire sang it to her baby, how exactly would Faith, if she had somehow survived, remember the tune well enough to pass it down to her supposed daughters? It doesn't quite add up, and that's where the new prequel changes things. If there's one solid takeaway from Season 7, it's simply that Faith Pocock has some connection to time travel. Who she actually is remains a big mystery, and that's clearly something Season 8 is meant to answer. But Blood of My Blood has already opened the door to another possibility. Maybe Faith isn't Claire's daughter at all, but her sibling. That might sound strange at first, but the prequel drops a shocking revelation. Claire's parents, Henry and Julia Beauchamp, didn't die in a car crash the way Claire always believed. Instead, they slipped through time to the 18th century just like she did. On top of that, Julia was pregnant when she disappeared. Claire never had the slightest idea she might have a sibling, but the prequel makes that a very real possibility. And suddenly, the detail about Fanny Pocock singing a 20th century song doesn't look like it points to Claire's daughter at all. It might connect back to Julia. Here's why that makes sense. According to Outlander canon, Henry and Julia Beauchamp supposedly died in 1923, years after I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside was already popular. Julia could easily have known the song before she vanished into the past. If she did give birth in the 18th century, she may have sung it to her child who later became connected to the Pocock family. In that case, the song would be a Beauchamp family lullaby, not evidence of Faith Fraser surviving. That would make Jane and Fanny not Claire's granddaughters, but her great-nieces instead. But here's the thing, Claire may not be entirely wrong in her belief either. Even if Faith Pocock isn't really her daughter, her assumption could still matter for the story, because Master Raymond's involvement makes the whole situation murkier. He appeared to Claire in a dream, apologizing for something she didn't understand, and then nudged her toward the idea that Faith might have lived. Maybe he wasn't revealing the truth, but rather pushing her down a path so she'd start investigating Faith's past and, in doing so, uncover the truth about Julia. Master Raymond has always been portrayed as a mysterious figure, an ancient time traveler who seems to pull strings behind the scenes. It's entirely possible he wanted Claire to think her daughter survived, not because it was true, but because it would motivate her to dig deeper. If that's the case, then his real goal could be to lead Claire toward discovering her parents' fate. That would fit perfectly with the idea that in Outlander, destiny is always at work, guiding people toward the bigger picture. That being said, the sibling theory does have some timeline problems. Julia was pregnant in the early 18th century, which means if she had a child then, that sibling would be about the same age as Jamie. But Faith Pocock was alive in the 1770s as a young woman, and the ages don't quite line up. Still, because Outlander is a time travel series, nothing is impossible. Julia and her second child could have jumped through time again, or Faith could have been displaced in the timeline herself. Maybe she traveled a few decades ahead and was forced into a hard life that led her to prostitution. At this point, nearly anything is on the table. The prequel doesn't just complicate Faith's story, it also reintroduces younger versions of fan-favorite characters like Murtagh Fitzgibbons and Yocasta Mackenzie. In Blood of My Blood, the spark between them is already noticeable even though their romance hasn't blossomed yet. Since their relationship never happened in Diana Gabaldon's books but became such a hit in the TV series, the spin-off is giving viewers a chance to see how it might have started. And while Murtagh died in Season 5 and Yocasta hasn't been on screen for a while, time travel could always make it possible for them to appear in Season 8. After all, Outlander has already proven that it isn't afraid to bend the rules when fan-favorite characters are involved. Murtagh, for instance, originally died much earlier in the books during the Battle of Culloden. But because viewers loved him so much, the show kept him around longer, which eventually allowed his romance with Yocasta to happen in the first place. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched for the final season to bring them back again for one last reunion. And this leads to another point. Outlander Season 8 isn't just about tying up Faith's story, it's about giving a sense of closure to the entire saga. Because the series is ending before Diana Gabaldon finishes her 10th and final book, there's no way all the mysteries will be answered in the show. Fans might be left with two different endings, one from the series and another eventually from the novels. But if both manage to deliver that full circle feeling, it won't be such a bad thing. What gives the show an advantage here is Blood of My Blood. Unlike Game of Thrones, which wrapped up its story before its author finished the books, Outlander is running its prequel alongside its final season. This means the two series can complement each other. The prequel already reveals how the Beauchamps and the Frasers were destined to cross paths long before Claire and Jamie fell in love. That sense of destiny is crucial because it brings back the question of why Claire was chosen to travel through time in the first place. That's always been one of the biggest mysteries of Outlander. Was it simply so she and Jamie could be together, or is there a bigger purpose behind her journey? The books hint at a larger destiny, but the show hasn't always captured that nuance. Now though, with a prequel and Season 8 working together, it feels like the franchise is preparing to finally answer that question. And don't forget those lingering mysteries from way back in Season 1. Frank once saw Jamie's ghost watching Claire in Inverness, and the show never explained how or why that happened. Then there were the forget-me-not flowers around the stones at Cronagh Dún, flowers that weren't native to Scotland, which suggested someone deliberately planted them to lure Claire toward her destiny. With the story coming to an end, it's likely that these details will tie back in. Maybe Claire's mother planted the flowers, or maybe another ghostly figure played a role. Either way, the final season seems set on circling back to the very beginning. Of course, the biggest challenge for Season 8 will be pulling all of this together in a way that feels intentional. Fans want the ending to give the sense that everything, Faith, Julia, Master Raymond, the Beauchamps, Jamie's ghost, the flowers, was always part of a larger plan. Even if Gabaldon's novels go in another direction, the show still has a chance to create a satisfying conclusion that feels like destiny. In the end, whether Faith Pocock turns out to be Claire's daughter, her sibling, or something else entirely, the important part is how the story comes full circle, because that's what Outlander has always been about: love, fate, and the mysterious ways time shapes both. Season 8 has the chance to tie everything together, and even if it leaves some questions unanswered, it could still deliver the kind of magical ending fans have been hoping for. And that wraps up today's video. If you want to stay in the loop with all the latest movie and series news, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up.